My name is Oliver. I'm 27 years old, British, and until recently, I genuinely believed I had built a solid life. Not perfect, but stable, predictable, safe. I had a decent job in tech. Nothing extraordinary, but enough to pay the bills, invest a little, and maintain a comfortable routine. And more importantly, I had Karen. Karen was impressive. She wasn't just beautiful, although she absolutely was. She was the kind of person who walks into a room and naturally draws attention. Not because she tries, but because of her presence, confidence, energy. That's what drew me to her. We dated for 2 years before getting married. 2 calm years. No major drama, no emotional roller coasters like you see in toxic relationships. It was easy. But after we got married, things started to shift. Not all at once. Subtle at first. Small comments, small behaviors. Karen started becoming more controlling. At first, I thought it was just part of who she was. She'd always been decisive, strong opinions, but over time, it stopped being personality and started becoming disregard. She didn't ask for my opinion anymore. She just informed me of decisions. We're going to Barcelona in September. I already signed up for this health plan. I don't like this couch. We're replacing it. It was no longer, what do you think? It was, this is how it's going to be. And me? I let it slide. Maybe because I loved her. Maybe because I avoided conflict. Maybe because deep down, I didn't fully understand what it meant. Until that dinner. Marcos was a mutual friend, or more accurately, her friend who became mine by proximity. He was a businessman, the flashy kind, the kind that needs to look even more successful than he actually is. Expensive cars, expensive watches, expensive restaurants, always surrounded by people. Not because everyone liked him, but because everyone liked what he represented. Success, status, money. That night, we went to dinner with him and his wife, Charlotte. The restaurant was upscale. Dim lighting, soft music, waiters who seem like they're quietly judging you. Karen looked stunning. Elegant dress, perfect posture, controlled smile. She looked like she belonged there. I always felt slightly out of place in those environments, but I could handle it. Until the conversation shifted. Money. So, Oliver, still at the same company? Marcos asked, swirling his wine. I am, I said calmly. And how's that going? Steady, growing little by little. He gave a half smile. Not approval. Assessment. Before I could continue, Karen jumped in. Oliver is very cautious. The tone made me look at her immediately. He prefers safety. He's not really the risk-taking type. Charlotte chuckled lightly. Not everyone has an entrepreneurial mindset, I guess. Marcos leaned forward, energized. That's what makes the difference. Big risk, big reward. I shrugged. Not every risk is worth it. Brief silence. Then, Karen dropped it. Honestly, Oliver should be more like you, Marcos. That caught me off guard. What do you mean? I asked, trying to stay light. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. It was performative. He doesn't really know how to do anything meaningful that makes serious money. My stomach dropped. I felt the air shift, but she wasn't done. Honestly, he's pretty much incompetent when it comes to that. Charlotte looked uncomfortable. Marcos just watched, and then the final blow. I make more than he does. The silence that followed was heavy, awkward, crushing. It felt like something had been ripped out of me, right there, in front of everyone. It wasn't about money. It never was. It was about respect. And in that moment, I realized something I'd probably been ignoring for a long time. Karen didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as less. I could have reacted, argued, exposed everything right there, but I didn't. I just gave a small smile and said, well, at least someone's doing well. The conversation moved on. Forced, artificial, but it moved on. And I stayed quiet the rest of the night, observing, thinking, processing. That night, When we got home, Karen acted like nothing had happened. Took off her shoes, dropped her bag, went to the bedroom. "You coming?" she asked. "In a minute." I stayed in the living room, alone, sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. And for the first time in a long time, I asked myself, why am I putting up with this? What Karen didn't know was that I wasn't just a cautious guy. For almost a year, I'd been working on something, quietly. No announcements, no validation, no need to prove anything. A company, small at first, almost invisible, but with real potential. And that week, everything was about to change. Lesson from Chapter 1. Respect isn't something you negotiate, it's something you observe. When someone starts putting you down, especially in public, that's not joking, not honesty, not strong personality. That's disrespect. And the most dangerous part isn't the first time it happens, it's when you start accepting it. If you constantly feel like you need to justify yourself, explain yourself, or shrink yourself to keep a relationship, then the problem isn't your capability, it's your environment. And one more truth, people who truly build value don't need to announce it. But they also don't tolerate being treated like they have none. I barely slept that night. I lay on my back, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to Karen's calm breathing beside me. That was the part that bothered me the most. Not what she said in front of Marcos and Charlotte, not the tone, not even the exact words. It was how peaceful she was afterward. How does someone sleep like that after tearing down their own husband in public? As the hours passed, something else started to take over. A cold feeling, clearer than anger. For the first time, it felt like I was seeing my marriage without filters. No excuses, no emotional cushioning, no comforting illusions that love and routine tend to create. Just truth. The next morning, Karen left early for work. She rushed through her routine, mentioned an important meeting, said something about a new project, picked out a blazer, grabbed her bag, and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. Automatic, routine, empty, like signing a receipt. "Are you going to be late today?" she asked, fixing her hair in the hallway mirror. "Maybe," I said. "Don't forget to pay the internet bill, and if you can, check that car insurance thing." Not a word about the night before. No, "Are you okay?" No, "Did I go too far?" Nothing. She left, and I stood there for a few seconds staring at the closed door. That answered everything. It wasn't a slip. It wasn't nerves. It wasn't too much wine. That's how she saw me. Maybe that's how she'd always seen me. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and tried to focus on work. But that week, work stopped being routine. It turned into a storm. The company I had with my partner, Ethan, was about to close the biggest deal we'd ever had. The firm was called Hale and Mercer Advisory. The name sounded traditional, almost old school, and that was intentional. Ethan and I never wanted to be one of those companies trying to look revolutionary before actually delivering anything. We started quietly, helping mid-sized businesses with operational structure, data integration, and digital security. It wasn't flashy, it didn't make headlines, but it solved real problems, and companies that solve real problems don't stay small forever. Ethan was the kind of guy who could read a room in 10 seconds. I was the kind who could read a system in 5 minutes. He opened doors. I made sure walking through them was worth it. We met on a consulting project 2 years earlier and clicked instantly. When we realized we were helping other companies grow while staying stuck in average roles ourselves, we made the move. We started the firm quietly. No announcements, no new chapter posts, no LinkedIn photos with crossed arms in front of a logo. Just work. At the beginning, I didn't tell Karen much, not because I was hiding anything, but because it was still uncertain. Early, fragile. I didn't want to sell the idea before it had real structure. I told her the basics, that I was working on something on the side with a partner, and that maybe it could grow into something bigger. She listened. like someone listening to a weather forecast. She never asked details, never asked about clients, strategy, challenges, risks, never asked to see reports, spreadsheets, contracts. At the time, I thought that meant she respected my space. Now I understood what it really was: disinterest, or worse, disbelief. Tuesday morning, Ethan called me at 7:12 a.m. "Oliver, are you sitting down?" "Well, now I'm concerned." He laughed. "They signed." I froze for a second. "They actually signed?" "Contract's done. First payment already in." "And my friend—" He paused. "This changes everything." I stood up immediately, walked to the window, pulled back the curtain. The street was wet from a light London drizzle. Cars moving in lines, people rushing with umbrellas, the city moving like nothing had changed. But inside me, something had just shifted. "How much came in?" I asked. Ethan told me. I leaned against the window, not because it was some insane movie-level number, but because it was real. It had weight. It had consequences. It had a future. That was the kind of deal that turns a side project into a real company. The kind that makes it very clear, I was never lacking ambition. I just didn't need to perform it. The rest of the morning was chaos: calls, contracts, timelines, hiring plans, expansion strategy. My phone wouldn't stop. My inbox turned into a flood: excitement, pressure, opportunity. Then, at 1:04 p.m., Karen texted me, "Don't forget to confirm Saturday dinner with my sister." I stared at the screen. Nothing about my day, nothing about me, nothing about us, just logistics. I replied. Wednesday night, we ran into Marcos and Charlotte again, this time at a rooftop bar in Canary Wharf. I was there with Ethan after a meeting. Karen showed up later from a corporate event nearby. Marcos looked exactly like he always did: expensive suit, loud confidence, drink in hand like it was part of his identity. "Oliver!" he said, opening his arms. "The quiet man." Quiet. Interesting word. Karen joined shortly after, greeting everyone like she was stepping into a scene she'd already rehearsed. Charlotte was especially kind to me, more than usual, probably because she remembered the dinner. There was a subtle awareness in the way she treated me. Sometimes the most polite person in the room is the one who saw everything and chose not to pretend. Marco started talking about investments, a new car he ordered, positioning strategies. Karen was engaged, laughing, agreeing, admiring. I was observing. Then Marcos asked, "So Oliver, still playing it safe?" Before I could answer, Karen smiled over her glass. "Oliver never changes. He's the king of playing it safe." Marcos laughed. "Too much caution is just fear with good PR." Ethan raised an eyebrow next to me. He didn't fully know Karen or Marcos yet, but he understood dynamics fast. "Or maybe caution is what keeps smart people from looking stupid in public," Ethan said casually. It took a second for the sentence to land. Charlotte nearly choked on her drink. Marcos let out a weird half-laugh. Karen looked at Ethan surprised. "And you are—" "Ethan Clark, Oliver's partner." She smiled, but there was a delay, a glitch. She didn't know that version of me existed. "Partner?" she asked, turning to me. "Yeah." "Partner in what?" No curiosity, just confusion. I had stepped outside the role she had assigned to me. "In the company," I said. "What company?" Ethan, with perfect timing, stepped aside to take a call. Left me alone with it, not out of cruelty, out of respect. "Hale and Mercer," I said calmly. Karen looked at me. "Oliver, you never talked about it like it was a real company." That hit. Not, "You didn't explain it well. I didn't realize it had grown." "That's amazing." "No," she said, "it was a real company." I looked at her. "Maybe because you never asked, it mattered." For the first time in a long time. Karen had no response. Later that week, my accountant sent the updated revenue numbers. I stared at them on the screen. It was almost funny. For years, I'd watched people measure worth by salary, job title, car, neighborhood. And there it was. Cold numbers. destroying the version of me my own wife believed in. I didn't feel pride. I felt clarity. That Friday night, Karen tried to be nice, ordered my favorite food, sat close to me on the couch. "You've been acting weird since that dinner," she said. "Are you stressed about work?" I almost laughed. Some people get so close to the truth and still choose the easiest way to avoid it. "I've been thinking," I said. "You take everything too personally, Oliver." There it was, the classic move. Don't deny the disrespect, just reframe the reaction as the problem. I looked at her. Being humiliated by your own wife in front of other people is not taking things personally. It's taking it exactly where it belongs. She leaned back slightly. "I was joking." "No, you were being honest. That's what makes it worse." She crossed her arms. "Honestly, I think you're overreacting." And right there, I understood something clearly. You can't explain pain to someone who benefits from your confusion. She didn't want to understand. She wanted control. That's when the decision started forming. Not fully, not clearly, but it was there, alive. Saturday morning, I sat in my small home office, closed the door, and started organizing everything: contracts, revenue, structure, projections. Then I opened another tab and searched for a divorce attorney, not out of anger, out of clarity. I didn't want to use success as revenge. Didn't want to say, "Now you'll respect me," because respect based on shock isn't respect, it's opportunism. I just wanted to do one thing the right way: reveal who I really was, and leave before she tried to love me only after others had validated me. That afternoon, I booked a meeting for Monday, closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and knew, with a calm that hurt more than anger ever could, that the next week wouldn't be about proving my worth. It would be about removing access from someone who never recognized it. Lesson from Chapter 2. Not every turning point comes with noise. Sometimes, the biggest shift in your life begins the moment you stop trying to be understood by someone who has already decided to see you as small. Success doesn't fix disrespect, it exposes it. People who truly care about you respect you during the process, not just after the results show up. And here's the key takeaway: when someone keeps reducing your value, don't waste energy trying to convince them. Use that energy to build your exit, strengthen your identity, and protect your peace. Because dignity isn't about winning arguments. It's about not staying where your presence is constantly being diminished. Monday arrived quieter than usual. There was no tension in the air, no unresolved argument, no drama, and somehow, that made everything heavier. Karen left early again, like always. Before walking out, she casually mentioned dinner with her sister over the weekend and asked if I had taken care of that insurance thing. I told her I had. She nodded and left, without looking back, without realizing that what felt like a normal routine was actually the last week of our marriage as she knew it. That morning, I met with a lawyer, a discreet office on the second floor of an older building downtown. Nothing flashy, nothing modern, the kind of place where serious decisions are made without theatrics. The lawyer, a man in his 50s, had that calm, precise demeanor. "So, Oliver," he said, adjusting his glasses, "you're looking to initiate a separation." "Yes." "Any significant shared assets?" "Yes, but most of what's growing right now hasn't been formally integrated yet." He nodded, understanding immediately. "And your reason?" I paused for a second. "Lack of respect." He didn't seem surprised, just wrote it down, because in the end, the deepest reasons are often the simplest. The following days moved in a strange duality. On one side, my professional life was exploding. Hale and Mercer was no longer a project. It was a growing reality. New meetings, new contacts, new contracts being discussed. My phone didn't stop. My inbox became a constant flood of opportunity. Ethan was energized. "This is just the beginning," he told me on a call Wednesday. "We can scale this way faster than we thought." I agreed, But at the same time, on the other side, my personal life was quietly shutting down. And the strangest part? Karen seemed completely unaware. She talked about her job, her coworkers, her targets, her bonuses. Sometimes she even complained about being tired, as if we were still emotionally aligned, as if nothing had broken, or as if nothing had ever mattered enough to break. By Friday night, everything lined up, not by accident, but because I decided it was time. Karen got home later than usual, visibly tired but still perfectly put together, as always. She took off her heels at the entrance, walked into the kitchen, and opened the fridge. "Is there anything to eat?" she asked. "I ordered food. It should be here soon." She nodded, grabbed a glass of water, and sat down. "Busy week," she said, "but productive. I think I'm in a good position for another promotion." I watched her, not with anger, not with resentment, but with a clarity that felt almost uncomfortable, like looking at someone I knew and realizing I had never really seen them. "Karen," I said. She looked up. "Yeah? We need to talk." She sighed lightly. "Oliver, if this is about that dinner again." "It's not." She stopped. Something in my tone made her actually pay attention for the first time in days. I stood up, walked to the office, grabbed a folder, and came back. Sat across from her, placed it on the table. "What is this?" she asked. "Something you never cared to ask about." She frowned slightly, opened the folder. Inside were contracts, reports, projections, statements, and most importantly, numbers. Numbers that didn't match the image she had of me. Numbers that didn't match the man she described at that dinner. Numbers that didn't match the word incompetent. She started flipping through the pages, slowly, then faster, then back again. "Oliver, what is this?" "Hale and Mercer." She looked up. "Is this revenue?" "Yes." "From your consulting thing?" I held back a small smile. "My company." She went silent, but this silence was different. Not social discomfort, not awkwardness. This was processing. "Is this accurate?" she asked quietly. "It is." "How long?" "The past week." She blinked, like the information hit too fast for her to keep up. "1 week." She slowly closed the folder, and for the first time since I'd known her, Karen looked small, not physically, but emotionally, like someone who just realized they built an entire narrative on something they never took the time to understand. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. There was something new in her voice, not arrogance, something closer to vulnerability. "Because you never wanted to know." She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped, because she knew it was true. "I thought," she hesitated. "Thought what?" "That it wasn't anything serious." I nodded slightly. "Exactly." Silence again. But this time, final. Karen ran a hand over her face, took a deep breath. "Oliver, I didn't know." "I know. I said those things, but I didn't mean—" "You said exactly what you meant." She looked down. And then came the sentence that changed everything. "We can fix this." I looked at her. "Fix what?" "This. Us." There it was. The attempt. Not to understand, but to adjust. Now that the context had changed. Now that I was no longer the man she could dismiss without consequence. Now that I represented something. Status, money, and in that moment, I knew there was nothing left to save. "No, Karen," I said calmly. She looked up, surprised. "No?" "No." She froze. I already did. I pulled another document from the folder, slid it across the table. She looked down, read the first lines, and went still. "That's a separation request." The air in the room shifted, like everything had been compressed into a single point. "Oliver, are you serious?" "I am." "Over an argument?" I shook my head slowly. "No, because of who you chose to be in this relationship." She took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "We can work on this." "It's not about work. I can change." "Maybe you can." "Then why—" I cut her off. Because you only want to change now. Silence. And I don't want to find out who you'd be, only after you needed to be. She looked at me like she was searching for a version of me that would stay, but that version didn't exist anymore. I loved you, Karen, I said quietly. I really did. She swallowed hard. But you never took the time to actually know me. A tear formed in her eyes, but there was no anger in me, just closure. And I'm not going to stay and watch you learn to value me after other people already did. She said nothing. No arguments, no defense, no control. That night, Karen slept in the guest room, and for the first time in a long time, I slept in peace. Lesson from Chapter 3. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that late recognition can fix long-term disrespect. It can't. When someone only starts valuing you after you prove something, money, success, status, that's not love. That's not respect. That's convenience. It's behavior adjustment based on benefit, and relationships built on that always collapse. The real takeaway is, don't wait for someone to see your worth after you succeed. Pay attention to how they treat you while you're still building. Because the people who truly matter already see your value before the world applauds. And maybe the most important truth of all, sometimes real success isn't the money you make. It's having the courage to walk away from where you're not respected, even when you finally could be.